The incident, the serene beauty of New Eden Colony, belied the tragedy about to unfold. Nestled on a lush, Earth-like world in the Orion Arm, the settlement had flourished for 2 decades. Its white spires and verdant agricultural domes were a testament to humanity's expansion beyond the solar system. Governor Amelia Chen stood at the panoramic window of her office, gazing at the twin moons hanging low on the horizon. A sense of unease had plagued her for days, a nagging feeling that something wasn't right. The long-range sensors had detected anomalies at the edge of the system, but the techs assured her it was just background radiation from a nearby pulsar. A knock at her door interrupted her reverie. "Come in," she called, turning to face her visitor. Marcus Wong, head of colony security, entered with a grim expression. "Governor, we've got a situation. Those anomalies, they're ships. A lot of them." Chen's blood ran cold. "First contact. Why haven't they hailed us?" Wong shook his head. "No hails, no warnings. They're on an attack vector." Before Chen could respond, the colony's warning sirens blared to life. Through the window, she watched in horror as streaks of light rained down from the sky, impacting the outskirts of the settlement. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. "Get everyone to the shelters," Chen shouted, already moving towards the door. "And get me a line to Earth. We need help." The next hours were chaos. Chen coordinated evacuation efforts from the emergency bunker, watching helplessly as alien dropships landed, disgorging strange, insectoid creatures that moved with terrifying speed and precision. The colony's meager defenses were overwhelmed in minutes. Reports flooded in from all sectors. Buildings destroyed, civilians cut down as they fled children. Chen choked back bile as she listened to a frantic transmission from the school district. "They're targeting the children," a teacher sobbed over the comm. "Oh God, there." The line went dead. Fury unlike anything Chen had ever known coursed through her veins. This wasn't war. This was slaughter. A garbled transmission broke through the static. "TFS Nemesis to New Eden Colony. Hold on. We're coming." Chen's eyes widened. TFS, Terran fleet ship. But Earth didn't have a fleet, just a handful of system defense boats. Unless. The sky lit up with new explosions, but these were different. Precision strikes rained down on the alien positions. Chen watched in awe as sleek, angular ships of obvious human design swept into view, their hulls gleaming with an iridescence that seemed to bend light around them. Within hours, the tide had turned. The alien forces were routed, their ships fleeing or destroyed. As the dust settled, Chen emerged from the bunker to survey the devastation. The cost had been horrific, but they had survived. Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka stood before her, his uniform bearing insignia she'd never seen before. "Governor Chen, I'm sorry we couldn't get here sooner. We came as fast as we could when we detected the attack." Chen's mind reeled. "Admiral, I don't understand. Where did this fleet come from? Why haven't we known about it?" Tanaka's expression was grim. "That's classified, Governor, but given the circumstances, you deserve to know. Earth has maintained a secret fleet for decades, hidden from both our own people and potential alien threats. We call it the Sentinel Program. But why keep it secret?" Chen demanded. "Fear, mostly," Tanaka sighed. "Fear that if we revealed our true capabilities, it would provoke the very conflict we sought to avoid. But now," he gestured at the ruined colony. "Now, the gloves are off." In the days that followed, as New Eden began the long process of rebuilding, news of the attack and Earth's response spread like wildfire across human space. Leaked footage of the battle, showing the advanced human ships decimating the alien fleet, went viral on the nets. On Earth, protests erupted outside government buildings as citizens demanded answers. How long had this fleet existed? What else was being kept from them? In a historic address, the President of the United Earth Federation stood before the General Assembly. "My fellow citizens, today we face a grave threat to our existence. The attack on New Eden was unprovoked and brutal. But let me be clear, humanity will not cower. We will not break. For years, we have prepared in secret, building a fleet capable of defending not just Earth, but all our colonies. Today, I am announcing the full activation of the Sentinel program. Holographic displays showed hundreds of ships decloaking in orbit around Earth and its colonies. The collective gasp of humanity was almost audible across the light years. To the species that attacked us, hear me now. You have awakened a sleeping giant. Your slaughter of innocents, your targeting of our children, will not go unanswered. The full might of Earth is coming for you. As the speech concluded, the Terran fleet began to mobilize. Ships from every colony converged, forming an armada the likes of which the galaxy had never seen. Aboard the TSS Nemesis, now serving as the fleet's flagship, Admiral Tanaka received his orders. On the bridge view screen, a star map highlighted their target, the home system of the species that had attacked New Eden. Admiral, his XO, Commander Saralai, said softly. Rules of engagement. Tanaka's jaw clenched as he remembered the images from New Eden. The broken bodies of children in the rubble of their school. We're not like them, Commander. We don't target civilians. But make no mistake, we're going to hit them hard. They need to understand that attacking humanity was the biggest mistake they've ever made. As the Nemesis led the fleet into FTL, Tanaka couldn't help but wonder. Was this the beginning of humanity's ascension to a galactic power, or the start of a war that would consume the stars? On New Eden, Governor Chen watched the fleet depart, a mix of hope and trepidation in her heart. The aliens had sought to break humanity's spirit. Instead, they had unleashed a force beyond their imagining. As the last ship winked out of view, Chen turned to the monumental task of rebuilding. Whatever happened next, New Eden would stand as a testament to human resilience, and a warning to any who would threaten Earth and its children again. The galaxy was about to learn a harsh lesson. Humanity was not to be trifled with. First strike. The vast expanse of space rippled as the Terran fleet dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of the Zarkoth system. Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka stood on the bridge of the TSS Nemesis, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic displays surrounding him. The alien homeworld, Zarkon, loomed in the distance, a rust-colored orb wreathed in a network of orbital stations and defense platforms. Status report, Tanaka ordered, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. Commander Saralai, her fingers dancing across her console, responded promptly. All ships accounted for. Admiral. Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels. The Zarkoth don't appear to have detected our arrival. Tanaka nodded, a grim smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The element of surprise was theirs. For now. Begin Phase 1. Let's see how they react to a taste of their own medicine. Across the fleet, orders were relayed with quiet efficiency. The first wave of ships, smaller, faster vessels designed for hit-and-run tactics, broke formation and accelerated towards the outer defense perimeter of Zarkon. On board the TSS Swift Justice, Captain Elena Rodriguez watched her tactical display with predatory focus. Her ship, along with a dozen others, had been tasked with taking out the Zarkoth's long-range sensors and communication arrays. "Weapons hot," she commanded. "Remember your training, people. We're not here for revenge. We're here for justice." The Swift Justice and its sister ships streaked past the outermost defense platforms, their advanced stealth technology rendering them all but invisible to Zarkoth sensors. It wasn't until the first volley of precision strikes lit up the night that the aliens realized they were under attack. Zarkoth battle stations erupted into frenzied activity, but it was too late. By the time their crews had scrambled to battle stations, the human ships had already completed their runs and were falling back to the main fleet. Admiral Tanaka watched the success of the first strike with grim satisfaction. "Phase 2, he ordered. "Let's draw out their fleet." The main body of the Terran Armada began to advance, their massive silhouettes finally registering on the damaged Zarkov sensor network. Alarms blared across the alien world as the full scope of the human force became apparent. In the Zarkov capital, Supreme Commander Vexlar stared in disbelief at the tactical displays. How had the humans amassed such a fleet in secret? The attack on their colony was supposed to have been a show of Zarkov supremacy, a prelude to the subjugation of a primitive species. Now it seemed they had awakened a slumbering colossus. "Launch all ships!" Vexlar roared, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "Activate the planetary shield. We will crush these human vermin." The space around Zarkon erupted with activity as the Zarkov fleet rose to meet the human advance. Thousands of ships, from nimble fighters to lumbering dreadnoughts, formed up in attack formations. Admiral Tanaka studied the enemy deployments, noting their strengths and weaknesses. The Zarkov relied heavily on numbers and brute force, a stark contrast to the surgical precision of the human fleet. "Commander Lee," Tanaka said calmly, "initiate the Hydra Protocol." Lee's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded and began inputting commands. Across the Terran fleet, ships began to shift and transform. Modular components reconfigured, weapons systems adapted, and shield geometries altered to counter the specific threats posed by the Zarkov vessels. As the two fleets clashed, the technological gap became immediately apparent. Human ships danced between enemy formations, their adaptive shields shrugging off attacks that would have vaporized lesser vessels. Zarkov ships, caught off guard by the constantly shifting tactics of their opponents, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Captain Rodriguez and her strike group carved a path of destruction through the enemy's left flank. The swift Justice's eye-assisted targeting systems allowed it to fire with uncanny accuracy, disabling Zarkov ships with precision hits to engines and weapon systems. "Cap, we've got a problem," her tactical officer reported. "Enemy cruiser is on a collision course with one of their own civilian stations." Rodriguez's eyes narrowed. "They're using their own people as shields," she spat. "Target their engines. Let's see if we can nudge them off course." The Swift Justice's main cannon fired, the energy beam slicing through space to impact the Zarkov cruiser's propulsion systems. The massive ship veered off course, missing the civilian station by mere kilometers. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield as the human fleet struggled to minimize collateral damage while pressing their attack. It was a delicate balance, one that the Zarkov seemed all too willing to exploit. Back on the Nemesis, Admiral Tanaka received a priority communication from Earth. The holographic figure of Fleet Admiral Yuki Sato, head of the Sentinel program, materialized on the bridge. "Hiroshi," Sato said, her face grave. "The galactic community is in an uproar. Several species are demanding we cease our attack immediately." Tanaka's jaw clenched. "With all due respect, Admiral, we can't back down now. The Zarkov must be held accountable for their actions." Sato nodded. "I agree, but we need to be careful. The Galactic Council has dispatched observers to monitor the situation. We can't afford to give our enemies any propaganda victories." "Understood," Tanaka replied. "We'll proceed as planned, but with utmost caution. The Zarkov will learn that actions have consequences." As the communication ended, Tanaka turned his attention back to the battle. The Terran fleet was making steady progress, but the Zarkov were fighting with the desperation of a cornered animal. "Sir," Commander Lai called out, "we're detecting a massive energy buildup from the planet's surface." Tanaka's eyes narrowed. "It seems they're about to play their trump card. All ships, brace for impact." A blinding beam of energy erupted from the surface of Zarkon, lancing out towards the heart of the human fleet. But the Sentinel program had prepared for such a contingency. As the beam approached, several specialized ships moved into position, their experimental shield systems activating in unison. The Zarkov superweapon struck the layered energy barrier with apocalyptic force. For a moment, it seemed as if the very fabric of space might tear. But when the light faded, The human fleet remained intact. A cheer went up across the Terran ships. The Zarkoth's ultimate weapon had failed. Seizing the moment, Admiral Tanaka ordered a full press towards the planet. "Target their military installations and government centers," he commanded, "but maintain the no-strike list for civilian areas." The battle reached a fever pitch as the human fleet closed in on Zarkon. Zarkoth ships fought with suicidal bravery, but they were outmatched in every way. One by one, their orbital defenses fell silent. In the capital, Supreme Commander Vexlar watched in horror as his carefully laid plans crumbled. The humans were not the primitive savages he had believed them to be. They were warriors of terrible skill and power, their mercy towards civilians only highlighting the barbarism of his own tactics. As the last of the Zarkoth fleet was neutralized, Admiral Tanaka opened a channel to the planet's surface. His face, stern and unyielding, appeared on screens across Zarkon. "This is Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka of the Terran fleet," he announced, his voice echoing through alien streets and corridors. "Your military has been defeated. Your leaders have led you to ruin. We demand your immediate and unconditional surrender." There was a long moment of silence. Then, a trembling voice responded, not Vexlar, but a lower-ranking official. We surrender. Please, no more." Tanaka's expression softened slightly. "Wise decision. Prepare to receive our terms. And know this, the children of Earth are under our protection. Remember this day, should you ever consider threatening humanity again." As the human fleet secured orbit around Zarkon, news of the decisive victory spread rapidly across the galaxy. On countless worlds, beings of all species gathered around view screens, watching in awe and fear as humanity revealed its true might. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Zara Nix stood before the assembled dignitaries once more. The mood was tense, with many species now reassessing their stance towards Earth. "We understand your concerns," Zara said, her voice steady. "But I assure you, Earth has no intention of galactic domination. We sought only justice for the innocent lives lost on New Eden. The Zarkoth have been defeated, but not destroyed. We will work with the galactic community to ensure a lasting peace." As debates raged in the council chamber, the crew of the Nemesis began the monumental task of securing the Zarkoth homeworld. It would be a long process, fraught with diplomatic and logistical challenges. Admiral Tanaka stood at the viewport, gazing down at the alien planet below. They had won the battle, but the true test lay ahead. Could humanity transition from righteous avengers to just peacekeepers? The galaxy was watching, waiting to see what this newly awakened giant would do next. As if sensing his thoughts, Commander Lee joined him at the viewport. "Quite a view, sir," she said softly. Tanaka nodded. "Indeed it is, Sarah. We've opened Pandora's box today. The galaxy now knows our true strength. Do you think we did the right thing?" Lai asked, voicing the question that weighed on many minds. Tanaka was silent for a long moment. "We did what was necessary," he finally replied. "Now we have to prove that we're worthy of the power we wield. That's the real challenge." As the two officers contemplated the future, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. Humanity had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage. What came next would shape the destiny of not just Earth, but countless worlds across the cosmos. The incident at New Eden had changed everything. And the galaxy would never be the same. The alien counterattack. The glow of Zarkon's twin moons cast an eerie light over the occupied planet. 2 weeks had passed since the Terran fleet's decisive victory, and an uneasy peace settled over the Zarkoth homeworld. Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka stood in the makeshift command center, converted from what was once the Supreme Commander's war room. Holographic displays flickered with reports from across the planet and the surrounding system. "Status update," Tanaka ordered, his voice betraying a hint of fatigue. The past fortnight had been a whirlwind of negotiations, peacekeeping efforts, and logistical nightmares. Commander Sarah Lai stepped forward, datapad in hand. The situation is stable, sir, but tense. We've successfully disarmed most of the Zarkov military installations, but there are pockets of resistance in the southern hemisphere. Civilian unrest is growing in some urban centers. Tanaka nodded grimly. And the diplomatic front. Ambassador Nix reports that the Galactic Council is still in deadlock. Some species are pushing for sanctions against Earth for what they're calling disproportionate use of force. Others are seeking closer ties, impressed by our technological prowess. The Admiral sighed, rubbing his temples. Keep me posted on any developments. What about? An alarm blared, cutting him off mid-sentence. Red warning lights bathed the command center in a crimson glow. Report. Tanaka barked, all traces of fatigue vanishing. Lee's fingers flew over her console. Multiple FTL signatures detected at the edge of the system. It's a Zarkov fleet, sir. A big one. Tanaka's eyes widened. Impossible. We neutralized their naval capacity. It appears they had a reserve force hidden in deep space. Admiral, Lai replied, her voice tight. Preliminary scans suggest their ships are different, enhanced somehow. The main view screen lit up, showing a swarm of Zarkov vessels advancing rapidly towards Zarkon. Their designs were familiar, yet altered. Organic-looking growths covered their hulls, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. All hands to battle stations, Tanaka ordered, his mind racing. Get me a secure line to Earth. We need reinforcements. As the Terran fleet scrambled to defensive positions, the Zarkov armada pressed forward with single-minded determination. Their ships moved with unnatural synchronicity, as if guided by a hive mind. Aboard the TSS Swift Justice, Captain Alina Rodriguez watched the approaching enemy with a mix of dread and determination. Talk to me, people. What are we dealing with? Her science officer, Dr. Amit Patel, studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. Captain, those organic structures on their ships, they're not just cosmetic. They're generating some kind of bioelectric field that's enhancing their shields and weapons. It's technology we've never encountered before. Rodriguez's jaw clenched. Any weaknesses? Working on it, Patel replied, his fingers dancing across his console. The comm crackled to life with Admiral Tanaka's voice. All ships engage at will. Protect the planet at all costs. We can't let them undo everything we've accomplished. The space around Zarkon erupted into chaos as the two fleets clashed. The enhanced Zarkov ships proved to be formidable opponents, their bioelectric fields allowing them to absorb punishment that would have destroyed their predecessors. On the planet's surface, panic spread among both the occupying human forces and the Zarkov population. The sight of their fleet returning should have been cause for celebration among the aliens, but something felt wrong. The ships attacking the humans seemed changed, corrupted. In the command center, Admiral Tanaka coordinated the defense with grim efficiency. Status on those reinforcements. He called out. Earth fleet is mobilizing, sir, Lai responded. But they won't arrive for another 6 hours at best. Tanaka grimaced. They would have to hold the line until then. As the battle raged, Dr. Patel on the Swift Justice made a breakthrough. Captain, he exclaimed, I've isolated a weakness in their bioelectric fields. If we can hit them with a concentrated electromagnetic pulse, it should disrupt the organic enhancements. Rodriguez nodded sharply. Good work, Doctor. Transmit your findings to the fleet. She opened a channel to the Nemesis. Admiral, we may have a solution. Tanaka listened intently as Rodriguez explained the discovery. Well done, Captain. But we don't have enough EMP weaponry to hit their entire fleet. Sir, Lai interjected, what about the planetary defense system we commandeered? If we reconfigure it to generate a massive EMP, we could take out their entire fleet in one shot, Tanaka finished. But the pulse would also knock out our own shields and weapons. We'd be defenseless. A heavy silence fell over the command center as the implications sank in. It's a risk we have to take, Tanaka decided. Commander Lai, begin the reconfiguration. All ships, prepare to lower shields on my mark. As the orders went out, the Zarkov fleet pressed their advantage. Several human ships fell to their enhanced weaponry, their crews evacuating in desperate launches towards the planet's surface. On the Swift Justice, Rodriguez and her team fought with everything they had. Evasive maneuvers, she shouted as another volley of enemy fire seared past their hull. Bring us about for another attack run. The nimble ship danced between enemy vessels, its point defense systems working overtime to swat away incoming missiles and fighter craft. But for every Zarkov ship they disabled, two more seemed to take its place. In orbit, the massive planetary defense array slowly reoriented itself, its energy capacitors charging for the electromagnetic pulse that would decide the battle's outcome. 30 seconds to full charge, Lai reported, her voice tense. Tanaka nodded, opening a fleet-wide channel. All ships, prepare to lower shields and brace for impact. May whatever gods you believe in watch over us. The seconds ticked by with agonizing slowness. Across the battlefield, human crews said silent prayers or exchanged final words with comrades. The Zarkov fleet, sensing victory within their grasp, pressed forward with renewed vigor. 5 seconds, Lai counted down. 4, 3, 2. Now, Tanaka roared. Every human ship in the system dropped its shields simultaneously. For a split second, they were utterly vulnerable. The planetary defense array fired. A wave of electromagnetic energy erupted from the planet's surface, expanding outward in a sphere of crackling blue-white light. It washed over the battling fleets, and for a moment, all was silent. Then, chaos. The organic enhancements on the Zarkov ships writhed and pulsed before going dark. Vessel after vessel lost power, drifting lifelessly in space. But the human fleet fared little better, their own systems overloaded by the massive pulse. On the Swift Justice, emergency lights flickered to life as backup systems engage. Damage report. Rodriguez called out, pulling herself up from where she'd been thrown to the deck. Main powers offline, her engineer reported. Weapons, shields, and propulsion are all down. Life support and artificial gravity are running on auxiliaries. Similar scenes played out across the Terran fleet. They had stopped the Zarkov advance, but at a terrible cost. In the command center, Tanaka and his team worked feverishly to restore some semblance of control. "Get me any ship with functioning communications," he ordered. After several tense minutes, a garbled transmission came through. It was Captain Rodriguez. "Admiral," her voice crackled over the comm. "We're dead in the water here." But it worked. The Zarkov fleet is neutralized. Tanaka allowed himself a small smile. "Good work, Captain. All ships, begin emergency repairs. We need to get our systems back online before." He was cut off by another alarm. Lei's face paled as she studied her console. "Sir, we're picking up a transmission from the lead Zarkov ship. It's asking to speak with you." Tanaka's brow furrowed. "Put it through." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that made even the battle-hardened admiral take a step back. The being on the screen was Zarkov, but hideously altered. Writhing tendrils emerged from its carapace, and its eyes glowed with an unnatural light. "Humans," the creature's voice grated, somehow conveying both menace and desperation. "You do not understand what you face, what you have interrupted. Identify yourself," Tanaka demanded, fighting to keep his voice steady. The altered Zarkov clicked its mandibles in what might have been amusement. "I am Vexlar, though not as you knew me. We have been improved, uplifted, and soon you will join us in glorious unity." Tanaka's mind reeled. This was the former Supreme Commander? What had happened to him? "Explain yourself, Vexlar. What is the meaning of this attack?" "Attack?" Vexlar's tendrils writhed. "No, Admiral. This is salvation. The beings you call the architects have shown us the truth. Individuality is chaos. Only in perfect union can the galaxy know peace." A chill ran down Tanaka's spine. "The architects. whispered legends of an ancient, vastly powerful species that had vanished eons ago. But if they were real, and if they had somehow returned, your union killed innocent children, Tanaka growled. We'll have no part of it. Vexlar's altered face twisted into something approximating a smile. You have no choice, human. The architects cannot be stopped. Even now, they approach. This was merely the first wave. Surrender, and your assimilation will be painless. Resist, and... The transmission cut off abruptly as the Zarkov ship systems finally succumbed to the EMP's effects. A heavy silence fell over the command center. The implications of what they had just learned were staggering. Orders, sir. Lai asked quietly. Tanaka took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. Get our systems back online. Dispatch rescue teams to any Zarkov ships with life signs, and get me a secure line to Earth as soon as possible. He paused, his gaze sweeping over his battered but unbroken crew. It seems the real war is just beginning. As the Terran fleet began the arduous process of repairs, the true scope of the threat they faced began to sink in. The Zarkov had been but pawns in a much larger game. And humanity, it seemed, was about to be thrust onto a cosmic chessboard they barely understood. In the distance, undetected by either fleet, a single probe watched the aftermath of the battle. Its sensors recorded everything, transmitting the data across vast gulfs of space to its masters. The architects had not been idle during their long absence, and now their attention was fixed firmly on humanity. The galaxy trembled on the precipice of a conflict unlike any it had ever known. And Earth, whether ready or not, would be at its center. Turning point. The somber atmosphere aboard the TFS Nemesis was palpable as Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka addressed the assembled leaders of the Terran fleet. Holograms flickered around the conference room, displaying the faces of captains and commanders from ships across the battered fleet. Ladies and gentlemen, Tanaka began, his voice grave, the situation has changed dramatically. What we thought was a conflict with the Zarkov has evolved into something far more dangerous. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. We are now facing a threat that could endanger not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. The Admiral went on to brief them on the encounter with the altered Vexlar and the ominous mention of the architects. As he spoke, expressions of shock and disbelief rippled across the faces of his officers. Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Swift Justice leaned forward, her holographic image flickering slightly. Admiral, with all due respect, are we certain this isn't some sort of Zarkov deception? A last-ditch effort to throw us off balance? Tanaka shook his head. The bioelectric enhancements on their ships were unlike anything we've ever encountered. And the alterations to Vexlar himself. He suppressed a shudder. No, Captain. This is real, and we need to prepare accordingly. Commander Sarah Lai stepped forward, datapad in hand. We've managed to restore basic functions to most of our fleet, sir. But we're operating at reduced capacity. If these architects launch a full-scale assault, we wouldn't stand a chance, Tanaka finished grimly. Which is why we need to change our strategy. This is no longer about punishing the Zarkov. We need to understand what we're up against and find a way to stop it. Dr. Amit Patel, the scientist who had discovered the weakness in the enhanced Zarkov ships, cleared his throat. Admiral, if I may, I've been analyzing the data we collected from the battle. The organic enhancements on their ships, they're not just technology. They're alive, in a sense, and they're evolving. A murmur of unease rippled through the assembled officers. What are you saying, Doctor? Tanaka asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Patel's expression was grim. I'm saying that if we don't find a way to counter this threat quickly, we might be facing an enemy that can adapt to our every move. An enemy that can turn our own people against us. The implications hung heavy in the air. The threat they faced was not just external, but had the potential to corrupt from within. So what do we do? Rodriguez asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Tanaka took a deep breath. We need more information. And for that, we need to go to the source. He tapped a control, and a new hologram sprang to life. A star map highlighting a distant sector of space. Long-range scans have detected unusual energy signatures in this region. If the architects are out there, this is our best bet for finding them. You want to seek them out? Lai asked, incredulous. Sir, with all due respect, that sounds like suicide. It's a risk we have to take, Tanaka replied firmly. We can't defend against an enemy we don't understand. I'm assembling a task force for a reconnaissance mission. Captain Rodriguez, I want the swift justice to lead it. Rodriguez straightened, a mix of pride and apprehension on her face. Yes, sir. We won't let you down. As the meeting concluded, and the officers dispersed to their duties, Tanaka held Lai back. Commander, I have a special assignment for you. I need you to oversee the interrogation of the Zarkov prisoners we captured, especially any that show signs of this alteration. Find out everything you can about the architects and their methods. Lai nodded solemnly. Understood, sir. But what if they try to convert our own people? Tanaka's expression hardened. Then we'll deal with that when the time comes. For now, extreme caution. No direct contact. Use AI interfaces and remote systems for all interactions. As Lai left to carry out her orders, Tanaka turned to the viewport, gazing out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an ancient and terrifying force was stirring, and humanity was woefully unprepared for what was coming. Days later, the Swift Justice led a small group of ships towards the coordinates where the unusual energy signatures had been detected. Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge, tension evident in every line of her body. Status report, she called out. Her helmsman, Lieutenant Kira Chen, responded promptly. We're approaching the outer edge of the anomaly, Captain. Sensors are having trouble getting clear readings. Dr. Patel, who had been assigned to the mission for his expertise, frowned at his console. There's some kind of interference. It's like space itself is distorted here. Rodriguez was about to respond when a blinding flash of light engulfed the view screen. When it faded, the stars had changed. They were somewhere else entirely. Report. Rodriguez barked, fighting down a surge of panic. We've been transported, Chen said, her voice shaking slightly. I don't recognize any of these star patterns. Before anyone could process this information, a new sight filled the view screen. A massive structure loomed before them, dwarfing their ships. It was like nothing they had ever seen. A twisting, fractal shape that seemed to bend in impossible ways, pulsing with the same bioelectric energy they had seen on the enhanced Zarkov ships. My God, Patel whispered. It's them, the architects. As if in response to his words, a beam of energy lanced out from the structure, enveloping the Swift Justice in a shimmering field. Evasive maneuvers, Rodriguez shouted, but it was too late. The ship's systems went dark, and an otherworldly presence filled their minds. We AKVVBEN humans. The words weren't spoken, they simply appeared in their thoughts, accompanied by a cascade of images and sensations. The crew of the Swift Justice saw flashes of impossibly advanced civilizations, of wars that spanned galaxies, of the rise and fall of empires over billions of years. You stand at ACROSSROADs. Join us in unity, or efface EXTING. Rodriguez gritted her teeth, fighting against the alien presence in her mind. We'll never submit, she ground out. DFINC is POANTLS. UKANOD QOMPREHNDVA scale. You face. More images flooded their minds. Countless species assimilated, transformed into something both more and less than what they had been. And behind it all, a vast, incomprehensible intelligence that spanned the cosmos. But as the onslaught of alien thoughts threatened to overwhelm them, something unexpected happened. The human minds began to push back. In the depths of her consciousness, Rodriguez felt a spark of something primal and fierce. The indomitable human spirit that had driven her species to the stars refused to be extinguished. "We may not comprehend your scale," she thought back at the vast presence, "but we understand one thing perfectly: the right to choose our own destiny." The alien presence recoiled, as if surprised by the strength of her resistance. In that moment of weakness, Rodriguez saw something, a flaw in the seemingly perfect unity of the architects, a discord buried deep beneath the surface. "You are different," the presence acknowledged. "Interesting. Perhaps there is more to your species than we anticipated." The energy field surrounding the swift Justice dissipated, and the crew found themselves back in control of their faculties. The massive structure before them seemed to shift, reconfiguring itself into a form more comprehensible to human eyes, a colossal space station of impossible complexity. A new message filled their minds, but this one felt different, less overwhelming, more curious. "We will study you AQR behavior making our final decision. You may return to your pupil, but no TS. The humanity cannot to be stopped. It can only be joined." In another flash of light, the swift Justice and its companionships found themselves back in familiar space, near the border of Zarkov territory. Rodriguez slumped in her chair, exhausted but alert. "Is everyone all right?" she asked, looking around at her shaken but intact crew. Nods and murmured affirmatives answered her. Dr. Patel was already furiously inputting data into his console. "Captain," he said, excitement breaking through his fatigue, "the readings we got from that encounter. It's unprecedented. We may have just made the greatest scientific breakthrough in human history." "Forget the science for a moment, Doctor," Rodriguez replied. "We need to report back to Admiral Tanaka immediately. The situation is far more complex than we imagined." As the swift Justice and its escorts limped back towards the main fleet, Rodriguez couldn't shake the feeling that they had just changed the course of galactic history. The architects were real and more powerful than they could have imagined, but they weren't infallible. There was a weakness there, a crack in their seemingly perfect facade. And where there was weakness, there was hope. Back on Zarkon, Admiral Tanaka received the swift Justice's report with a mix of awe and trepidation. The encounter with the architects confirmed their worst fears, but also offered a glimmer of possibility. "So they're not immediately hostile," he mused, pacing the command center. "That gives us some breathing room, at least." Commander Lai, who had been overseeing the interrogation of the altered Zarkov prisoners, stepped forward. "Sir, I think I may have found something relevant in our prisoners' testimonies. Many of them speak of a great discord within the unity of the architects, a fundamental disagreement about the nature of their mission." Tanaka's eyes narrowed. "A disagreement? Among beings of that power?" Lai nodded. "It's vague, but consistent across multiple accounts. Some faction within the architects seems to question the ethics of forced assimilation. They believe in offering genuine choice. That aligns with what Captain Rodriguez reported sensing during their encounter," Tanaka said thoughtfully. "A hidden discord beneath the surface of unity." The Admiral was silent for a long moment, his mind racing with the implications. Then, slowly, a plan began to form. "Commander," he said, turning to Lai, "I think we may have found our path forward. We can't match the architects in power or technology, but if we can exploit this internal division—" He trailed off, the magnitude of what he was proposing sinking in. Lee's eyes widened as she grasped his meaning. "You want to try and negotiate, to appeal to this dissenting faction?" Tanaka nodded grimly. "It's a long shot, but it might be our only chance. We need to gather every scrap of information we can about this great discord. And we need to prepare a delegation, not just humans, but representatives from every species willing to stand with us. He turned back to the viewport, gazing out at the stars that now seemed full of both peril and possibility. "The architects thought to study us," Tanaka said softly. "Well, two can play at that game. It's time we showed them what humanity is really capable of. Not just our defiance, but our diplomacy, our creativity, our capacity for unity that doesn't require the erasure of individuality." As orders went out and the gears of this audacious plan began to turn, a new sense of purpose infused the Terran fleet. They had come to this distant star system seeking justice for a single human colony. Now they found themselves fighting for the freedom of the entire galaxy. The next move would be crucial. The fate of countless civilizations hung in the balance. But for the first time since the crisis began, humanity dared to hope. They had faced the abyss and emerged with a chance, slim though it might be, to shape the destiny of the cosmos. The gambit was set. The pieces were in motion, and the greatest diplomatic endeavor in human history was about to begin. Resolution and aftermath. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with an energy unlike anything in its long history. Representatives from dozens of species filled the tiered seats, their usual decorum giving way to urgent whispers and nervous glances. At the center of it all stood Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka, flanked by Captain Elena Rodriguez and Dr. Amit Patel. "Esteemed members of the Council," Tanaka began, his voice carrying across the chamber, "we stand at a crossroads that will determine the fate of not just our individual species, but of free will itself across the cosmos." Over the next hour, Tanaka laid out everything they had learned about the architects, their incomprehensible power, their mission of forced unity, and the critical discovery of discord within their ranks. As he spoke, holographic displays showed footage from the Swift Justice's encounter and data gleaned from the altered Zarkov prisoners. "The threat we face is real," Tanaka concluded, "but so is the opportunity. We propose a joint diplomatic mission to engage with the architects directly, not to submit, but to offer an alternative. A vision of unity that preserves the diversity and free will that make our civilizations worth preserving." The chamber erupted into chaos. Some representatives voiced their support, while others denounced the plan as suicidal. The Zarkov ambassador, still reeling from the revelation of how his people had been manipulated, stood shakily. "The Zarkov Empire," he paused, mandibles clicking in agitation, "wishes to join this mission. We have much to atone for, and perhaps much to offer in understanding the architect's methods." One by one, other species pledged their support. Not all. Some chose to remain neutral, while a few stormed out in protest. But as the session concluded, Tanaka found himself at the head of the most diverse coalition the galaxy had ever seen. As the delegates dispersed to prepare, Captain Rodriguez approached the admiral. "Sir, are you sure about this? We're risking everything on a gamble." Tanaka nodded solemnly. "Sometimes, Elena, the only way to win is to change the game entirely." Weeks later, a fleet unlike any other assembled at the coordinates where the Swift Justice had first encountered the architects. Ships of every shape and size, representing over 30 distinct species, formed a breathtaking armada. At its heart was the Prometheus, Earth's most advanced diplomatic vessel, retrofitted with technology contributed by a dozen worlds. On the Prometheus's bridge, Tanaka stood with an unprecedented gathering of leaders. There was Ambassador Zara Nix of Earth, her emerald eyes scanning the assembled aliens with a mix of wonder and determination. Beside her, the reformed Zarkov leader Vexlar, his body still bearing signs of the architect's alterations, but his mind now his own. Representatives from the Volshang Collective, the Ethori Concordat, and many others filled the command deck, each bringing unique insights and abilities to the mission. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Commander Sarah Lai announced from her station. Tanaka took a deep breath. "Then let's make history. Initiate the jump." The fleet vanished in a dazzling display of combined FTL technologies. When they re-emerged, the twisted, fractal structure of the architect's base filled their view screens. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then, a familiar presence filled their minds. You return, Borangiing others. Curious, Tanaka stepped forward, focusing his thoughts as they had practiced. We come seeking dialogue. We believe there is a better way than forced assimilation. Images flooded their minds. Countless civilizations rising and falling, endless cycles of conflict and destruction. Dialogue is pointless. Humanity is theonly to peace. But even as the overwhelming force of the architects will pressed upon them, the assembled leaders pushed back. Each species shared their own histories, their triumphs and failures, the beauty that arose from their differences. The Vulcane representative, a being of crystalline thought, projected memories of art that could only exist through the interplay of diverse perspectives. The Authority, a species that experienced time non-linearly, offered visions of futures where diversity led to innovations beyond the architect's imagining. And humanity, led by Tanaka and his crew, showed something the architects had never truly grasped: the power of choice. They shared moments of sacrifice, of individuals choosing the greater good not through compulsion, but through free will. They showed how true unity could arise from mutual understanding and respect, rather than forced homogeneity. As this symphony of thought and emotion reached its crescendo, something unprecedented happened. The architect's overwhelming presence fractured, and distinct voices emerged. Fascinating. Perhaps we have mistaken. No, the plan must continue. Humanity is the only way. You see now, the beauty in their chaos. We must RESONSIDR. The assembled leaders watched in awe as the massive structure before them seemed to war with itself, sections shifting and realigning as the debate raged. Seizing the moment, Vexlar stepped forward. The former Zarkov leader, once a pawn of the architects, now became their most potent critic. He laid bare the horror of losing one's identity, the hollow victory of peace without choice. You offered us perfection, Vexlar thought, his mental voice ringing with conviction, but at the cost of everything that makes us who we are. That is not ascension. It is extinction. A silence fell, both in the physical realm and in the mental landscape where this unprecedented dialogue was taking place. Then, slowly, the architect's structure began to change. The harsh, fractal edges softened, taking on a form that seemed to incorporate aspects of the diverse fleet before it. A new voice, one that somehow encompassed all the others while remaining distinct, addressed them. We have much to learn. Perhaps it is we who must evolve. The oppressive mental presence withdrew, replaced by a sensation of vast minds contemplating new possibilities. Return to your worlds. We will note NTRFER as you have aired. But nay, while we abandon our world, we will do the way. We will learn, and perhaps, in time, we may meet again as EQUALs. As suddenly as it had begun, the encounter was over. The massive structure vanished, leaving behind only a faint ripple in space-time to mark its passage. On the bridge of the Prometheus, a stunned silence gave way to cautious celebration. They had done it. Against all odds, they had changed the course of cosmic history. In the months that followed, the galaxy entered a new era. The threat of the architects loomed less as an imminent danger and more as a profound challenge, a call to prove that diverse civilizations could coexist and thrive without the need for forced unity. On Earth, Admiral Tanaka stood before the United Earth Council, delivering his final report on the architect crisis. We went to the stars seeking justice for a single colony, he concluded, his voice carrying the weight of all they had experienced. We return having secured a future for countless worlds. But our work is far from over. He gestured to the holographic display, showing the unprecedented alliance that had formed. The architects will be watching, learning from us as we once learned from them. It falls to us now to prove that our way, a unity of choice and diversity, is not just viable, but vital. We must build something so magnificent that even beings as ancient and powerful as the architects will see its worth. As Tanaka stepped down from the podium, the chamber erupted in applause. But even as he accepted the accolades, his mind was already turning to the challenges ahead. The Zarkoth Empire, once their bitter enemy, now sought to make amends. Dozens of species, previously isolated or adversarial, now looked to forge new bonds. And somewhere out there, the architects waited and watched. In her quarters aboard the Swift Justice, now undergoing extensive repairs and upgrades, Captain Elena Rodriguez penned her personal log. When we set out to avenge New Eden, I never imagined where that mission would lead us. We've seen wonders and horrors beyond imagination. We've faced enemies that could have swatted us like insects, and instead, we taught them something new. She paused, gathering her thoughts. But the real work is just beginning. We showed the architects a glimpse of what diverse civilizations working together could achieve. Now we have to live up to that promise. It won't be easy. Old grudges die hard, and the temptation to exploit our new technologies for selfish gains will always be there. But for the first time, I feel like we're truly part of something greater. Not a forced unity, but a chosen one. A galactic community where every voice matters, where our differences are our strengths. The architects will return one day. And when they do, I hope they find a galaxy that has surpassed even their wildest imagination. A cosmos of infinite diversity in infinite combinations, bound together not by force, but by choice. That's the real final frontier. And our journey there is just beginning. As Rodriguez finished her log, she gazed out at the stars. Once they had seemed cold and distant. Now they pulsed with possibility. Humanity had taken its place on the galactic stage, not through conquest or submission, but through the very qualities that define them: resilience, creativity, and an unwavering belief in the power of choice. The crisis that began with the attack on New Eden had reshaped the cosmos. And whatever challenges lay ahead, Rodriguez knew one thing for certain: they would face them together, as part of a community greater and more wondrous than any single species could have imagined. The true age of exploration was just beginning, and the stars, once so distant, now felt like home.